Stardate 607125.6. The USS Protostar is fractured in time. In a sine wave format, Janeway will have to navigate her way through, and it'll ultimately be up to Roktak to save the ship. This is the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast. Hailing frequencies are open. Welcome back, Starfleet officers and officers in training, to the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast. I am your regular host, Mike. I am joined by regular co-host, DK.
Hello.
We hope you enjoyed our little detour for the top 10 Trek movies last week. We are back to business as usual this week. Unfortunately, we have had a little bit of a mess around with guests and such, so you will have to put up with just the regular host and co-host here, just us two, but why not? We've done it before, and we'll probably have to do it again, but yeah, having some unfortunate situations this series with guests. So if you do happen to be listening to this podcast and you're a Trek fan who wants to talk Star Trek and you're reliable, then please do get in touch. We're looking for guests always to try and get new blood in, but you know, please be reliable, be able to be called upon and actually come and talk to us for like 90 minutes to 2 hours. So yeah. So yeah, just the two of us.
If you love Trek and you're a fan of the show, you obviously know that it's a very relaxed atmosphere here. So yeah, please do. We do have such a blast when we do it, and it would be great to talk to some of you guys and gals out there.
Absolutely, 100%. And yeah, because we like talking Trek with people, and we like talking to new people and getting to know their own preferences and stuff. So that would be nice. But anyway, as I said, there was a little detour last week, but we're back to business as usual in terms of reviews this week. So we are back on the time travel themed stories. And this week, we're going to be looking at Star Trek Prodigy, one of the newest series, and the episode Time Amok. Haha, I see what you did there. Did you pick up on that, DK? You didn't, did you? You now think, what do you mean?
Yeah. I'll be honest, when they first revealed the episode title, I groaned.
Oh, I loved it. I'm just a sucker for any of that. Bear in mind, this episode came immediately after First Contact. So, you know, it's going to look great in comparison to that pun, isn't it? So, yeah, we're going to be looking at that Prodigy episode later. But, you know, we do other bits and pieces here. So why the heck not? I just thought we haven't really touched base for a little while. So as we always do, why not start the episode with a little bit of a chat? And our hailing frequencies are open.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
So, DK, how are you? And what Trek have you been watching lately? Not just for the podcast, but for fun.
We've been watching Lower Decks recently,
right,
which I'll be completely honest with you. When it first started, I wasn't a convert straight away, but I've really just got into it now, and I look forward to it each week. I love it.
I think I was an immediate convert, but I think I think it kind of dipped a little bit at the start of season 2, but I do think this third season might be the strongest so far. And at time of recording, the last episode was Crisis Point 2. So, you know, a show is confident when it's making sequels to its own episodes, basically.
Yes,
but yeah,
definitely.
very well done.
Yeah. I mean, awesome. I do watch the occasional episode, occasional movie, you know, when the mood takes me. But for regular viewing, it's been Lower Decks at the minute, and I'm obviously just waiting for the new season of Discovery and eventually Picard.
Yeah, well, we've got Prodigy starting, I think, this week at time of recording, actually, with the second half of season 1, and then Discovery should be early next year, and Picard already has a date, but I can't remember it. I think it was February or March. But yeah, awesome. I've got to be honest, like, I'm not loving that Discovery's reduced the episode count to 10, supposedly to be in line with the other shows, because that sucks.
Yeah. It's always a bad sign to me when series start reducing episodes rather than adding to them. I mean, it's fine if they're wanting to create some kind of uniform thing, but sometimes they do have a tendency to give one reason while there being another in reality. And I actually love Discovery, so I'm hoping it's going to keep going.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of the cast are saying, you know, that there's no intention of stopping, but we'll wait and see how it goes. But anyway, yeah. So, do you have, by the way, a favorite episode so far out of the Lower Decks episodes?
Oh, it's the one from a couple of weeks back. I can't remember the name. The one where Boimler and Mariner are at the Starfleet recruiting booth.
Yeah, I did like that one as well.
I absolutely love that one. Boimler loses it at the end. I was just in tears of laughter.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I love it. I love all of it, but yeah, I probably would say the same episode. But we were just talking about the last one that aired again at time of recording was Crisis Point 2, and I remember I was saying to you, I got all excited when we saw Kirk's name on the mailbox, and I was like, "There's no way they got Shatner," and yeah, they did.
Yeah, yeah. I saw the painted name on, and I was like, "They haven't, they haven't." And then, oh no, they haven't.
Not to worry. I mean, George Takei is still perfectly fine. That was still pretty exciting. So yeah. I'll tell you something. This is just apropos of nothing, but something I've noticed is how many people on the internet are utterly confused by the koala in the little bumper for Lower Decks as well. You know how they do the ship flying around the little delta for every series now?
Yeah.
And on the Lower Decks one, there's like the koala in the nebula as the ship goes past. If you haven't seen it, do look for it. But so many people on Twitter are just like, why is there some evil teddy bear in the nebula on the...
Yeah, I saw that today, and I mean, I noticed it several weeks ago, but then I started seeing the tweets today, and I thought, well, that's not new, surely.
It's not new. It's always been there, but it's amazing how many people just haven't watched the series because it's like the fourth reference to the whole, koala. With the whole universe is resting on the back of a koala. Why is he smiling? What does he know? I just love that it's doubling down on that joke. I hope they keep going with it.
I do love the fact that for the idents they are using the ship from each series.
Yes, because I did think because it started on Strange New Worlds, and I was like, oh, they're just going to use the Enterprise for it probably always, but then nope. Lower Decks has the Cerritos, and it has the little sly Easter egg of the koala, so it'll probably be series specific. We'll see when Prodigy comes out. It'll hopefully be the Protostar. So
yeah.
Awesome. So. As I say, we've been keeping up with the Trek, but we don't tend to review things as they come out because we like to give it a little bit of perspective and a bit of time to sit on them. But we we are dealing with kind of time travel stuff this series, though. So I did want to ask, because I've been asking the guests and I've never actually had this conversation with you, DK. What are some of your favorite time travel episodes or movies in the Trek universe?
Well, I mean, we've by this point, it will have aired. It's always going to be City on the Edge of Forever for me.
And you still only gave it 4.5 out of 5.
I have my reasons, okay?
It's fair, it's fine.
There's obviously Trials and Tribulations, which we have coming up soon, hopefully. I do love Time's Arrow, and I did enjoy listening to your episode on that, by the way.
With Andy and Phil,
yeah. Trek 4, The Voyage Home, always a classic.
The one with the wheels.
Something that we've got coming up. And oh crikey, you'll have to bear with me because, as the audience probably no doubt know, I have more Swiss cheese memory than a Quantum Leaper. But the one with the Next Generation one. There's two Next Generation ones that are not Time's Arrow. The one where they're stuck in that time loop where they find Picard in the shuttle and the Enterprise gets destroyed.
We did talk about that in the Time's Arrow episode, yeah.
Yeah. And the one with Matt Frewer as Berlinghoff Rasmussen, which I cannot remember the name of the episode, but I can remember Berlinghoff Rasmussen.
I think it's called A Matter of Time, which... Yeah, pretty generic. So that's probably why you don't remember it. That could be wrong, by the way, but I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah, I mean, it's not strictly a time travel episode, as it just deals with this charlatan.
The ship comes from a different time.
I do like it. Yeah.
Matt Frewer's always good value on any show that he turns up in or movie. So yeah, and I think at the time wasn't he like Max Headroom?
I remember him from Max Headroom.
Definitely, yeah, same. Because I'm just that old.
I actually thought that series was really good.
It was fun when you were watching, late night Friday night Channel 4. There's nothing else on. It's a very British thing to say, but yeah.
Yeah, Blipverts.
Yeah,
Very
completely.
prescient.
Very. I mean, this was before like Beavis and Butthead or any of that stuff that was similarly just sit and watch telly kind of rubbish, Yeah. Awesome. Cool. I'm trying to think some of my favorite time travel stuff. I like things you don't, because I definitely like Future's End from Voyager, and I know you don't. So,
Yeah,
so that's
I don't know. Like I said, it's the combination of. I think when Trek takes place in modern day and it works, you get something like the Voyage Home. But I just didn't get that same vibe from Future's End, and I wasn't a big fan of the supporting cast. And
I know you're not a fan,
yeah, it just came across as very contrived to me. I love the I do love the time travel episodes. Again, my memory slips me, but when Cisco has to do the bootstrap paradox and become, Bell for the Bell
Past tense.
riots. Yeah, love that. Love future tense. I'm just grasping onto titles that I can barely remember right now. It's very.
Well, you did
odd.
review Future Tense, in fairness, didn't you? So that's fine.
Yeah, but even that, it's a couple of weeks ago, mate, and you know what memory's like. So, but yeah. I did enjoy the concept of the temporal Cold War, and when they first brought in Daniels, it really piqued my interest. But I didn't want to say anything with Will being around because of spoilers. But it obviously it didn't end how I wanted it to end. They could have done a lot better with that.
Yeah, see, I was never that fond of it. I found it quite hit or miss, but in terms of time travel and that storyline, I loved Shockwave because I think that did something really clever with it, and unexpected. And I know it's not really a popular period because it was Enterprise's first 2 seasons and nobody loves them, but I thought it was brilliant. So, yeah, I've even got the novelization. That's how geeky I am. Oh, and not for nothing, but I also love Carpenter Street, and not just because of the John Carpenter tribute reference.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Also, who's in that one? Isn't it? Is it the actor Leland Orser, who was on Voyager previously? I think is in that episode. I could be wrong. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not. See, again, it wasn't that one. Oh, you'll have to forgive me. Again, that's Enterprise, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Carpenter Street was season 3. So
Jeffrey D. Morgan as a reptilian Xindi.
Yes, as the Xindi reptilian, and I had no idea it was him for the longest time until I read it and was like, "No, it's not." That was a full-on Mick Fleetwood as a fish moment there.
I can just remember random shit from the episodes.
Understandable, I think. Yeah, my mind was blown though when I read that the title Carpenter Street was because it was trying to mimic a kind of John Carpenter movie, and I was like, "Oh damn, I love that." Awesome. But yeah, and also special shout out to the not quite time travel episodes, but I like them anyway, like Enterprise's North Star or DS9's Far Beyond the Stars, which aren't technically time travel, but come on. But
yeah, very good episode. I mean, Far Beyond the Stars especially.
Yeah, for sure. Plus that might be time travel now that we know that Benny Russell's real, thanks to Strange New Worlds.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think considering it's not a basis for the show itself, I think Star Trek has some of the best scripts based around time travel that you see in the genre.
Yeah, it didn't start out that way, mind. There's not a single good time travel episode in the original series, in my humble opinion, except City on the Edge of Forever. I got caught myself. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to say, Jesus, man. And, I mean, I know of your own personal love for Assignment Earth. And
Tomorrow Was Yesterday, Assignment Earth, all our yesterdays. Dreadful. Every single one of them. Sorry. I'm just not a fan. But,
no, that's
and I mean, Next Gen didn't start well, to be honest. Even like Times Squared and stuff. It's like, but no. Again, I'm not sure if
I found the prospect of that really intriguing. But I think with the first couple of seasons of that show, none of the episodes in those first couple of seasons kind of lived up to the potential.
That's not true. Q Who is fantastic. It's an all-timer, and I will not hear a word said against it.
Yeah, and I mean, when you come up as far as obviously the latest season of Picard,
Yeah, we'll potentially get into that later, but yeah. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, and yeah, cause and effect deserves a mention because that's time travel. It's a loop. It's still traveling. Yeah, dear. Plus, again, just kudos for the fact that they couldn't find a guest star or the guest star dropped out. And because they filmed on the Paramount lot, they just literally walked over to Cheers and were like, Kelsey Grammer, you'll do. He has a Starfleet uniform.
I didn't know that. Is that how he came to be?
That's literally how he got the part, yeah. Because it's a nothing
Oh.
part. It's literally on the screen for a few seconds. And it was just that, I think, like I said, either the actor dropped out or they didn't really consider anything else. But because they were literally next door, because it's all Paramount. And I think, yeah, they just walked over to the Cheers set and were like, Kelsey Grammer, you'll do. That's how they got Baby New Earth is in the episode First Contact as well. For, I think, similar reasons. They were just like, well, she's here, so why not?
Just imagine if they weren't available, we ended up with a captain played by George Wendt or John Ratzenberger.
That would have been brilliant, I tell you. Personally, I was holding out for Rhea Perlman. Hey, Picard, what have you done to my ship?
Yeah. My God, there's a captain from Section 31, if ever there was one.
Could have been worse. Could have been Woody Harrelson. Let's just name the entire cast of Cheers.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a couple we've known. Yeah, let's get Shelley Long.
We could get Kirstie Alley in, but then that would just be Savick. So,
yeah. Let's not go there.
Let's not, indeed. I'm sure she'll be starring in a direct-to-video movie with Kevin Sorbo and Scott Baio before long. Anyway, so I will conclude that business there with that bit of nonsense. And yeah, if you are new here, I always say that, and we've been running for long enough. But if you do happen to be new here, the next section that we do would always be the hit or miss section. Yeah.
What about my performance? I'm not a drama critic.
Yeah. So what we do here, basically, I pick a number of things. We've got 7 this week, which whoever else is on the show has no idea about. And so this is the first time you'll be hearing them when we ask if they're a hit or a miss. Because it's only the two of us, obviously I'm only asking DK, then giving my own opinion. But hopefully I've found a good mix of things. And as is the norm for this series, I've got a couple of time travel stuff mixed in there as well. So yeah, are you all ready for the hit or miss section then, DK?
Yeah, go for it. But, bear in mind, with my memory, you might have to give me the odd prod. So, did you hear the latest hit or miss podcast? Mike had an amnesiac on. It was weird.
Somebody broke down on air. So weird. That could be either one of us. Oh, yes, I picked the right thumbnail, by the way, if you're wondering why I picked the moment where Janeway sees Murph and just face palms.
Yeah.
Anyway. Right, so this is the first thing. We're going to do 7 because it's a shorter episode. This is the first thing out of 7 that we have this week. So hit or miss for Star Trek Beyond. Sorry, I cannot hear the title of that movie without immediately.
Movie in the same light again now.
Don't watch that. Watch this. It's the heavy, heavy Starfleet sound. I can't. What a dumb title for a movie. Every time I hear it, I'm like, Star Trek Beyond. Anyway.
You see, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this. But
ooh, careful.
It's not my favorite Trek movie. It gets a lot of praise, and obviously coming, after Into Darkness, it's obviously has much better creative decisions than that. But I still thought it was kind of weak. I don't think it delivered on the premise that the first Abrams movie gave us. It's got some.
I'm waiting my turn.
It's got some. I love Jayla. I'm not keen on the whole the Enterprise being down thing. I think it's
it's tradition at this point, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the thing. I was expecting more. And although I love the, let's get the. Was it the Beastie Boys again? Let's get the Beastie Boys up and running again.
Yeah,
it's fine for modern audiences, but when you look at it, that's like someone going into battle playing Bach.
Picard did it.
But but
Dude was listening to friggin' Berlioz before he fought the Borg, man.
And the whole like little 0G brawl between Pine and Idris Elba at the end. I don't know. It seemed like they were just trying to, I know everybody thinks Simon Pegg is the second coming, and I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. But I think when I compare a script like this to obviously the stuff he did with Nick Frost and oh God, I've forgotten the
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright, that's it. I really need to go back to bed. Then I just think it was good. It was enjoyable, but to me, I've enjoyed episodes of the TV show more than this, and this it was kind of an episode of the TV show, but just given a slightly bigger budget, in my opinion, and with the exception of things like Jailer. No, but I mean, I'm putting that into the same category, and forgive me, people out there, if you don't agree with me, but I'm putting it in the same category as things like Insurrection. I love Jailer. It's a hit for me. Don't get me wrong. I don't. There's nothing about the movie.
That was a long way around the houses of dissing something for a good 10 minutes before going.
Mate. Yeah, but this is us. Every episode recently, we've had to go. We're not piling on it. We actually like it, but yeah, I do. There's nothing I actively dislike about it. But if it was a choice between this and the 2009, the first installment, I would definitely go with the first installment. So it's a hit, but it's a very, very, very soft hit. Sorry, guys.
There's no accounting for taste. I'm sorry. I would much rather watch an extended episode of Star Trek than J.J. Abrams making a Star Wars movie with the Enterprise in. So personally, I'm not a fan of Star Trek 09. But
I'm not. I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of cold on the whole Abrams stuff, or what people have started calling it, this alternate original series, which to me, AOS will always be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's the Kelvin timeline. I have official merchandise that has it written on, damn it.
Exactly. I hated I really hated the first movie when I first saw it, but it's grown on me to a point where I can put it on. It's an action movie. It's not my kind of Star Trek, but I can see how people would like it. It's just like, I can see why people would love Star Trek Beyond. Less so with Into Darkness, because that was just batshit. But this, I can see why people would like it. But this is not my Kirk. This is not my Spock.
No, well, that's understandable. But I will say then, just to kind of give a counter to that, I really love Star Trek Beyond, but I think it's because I so don't like the Kelvin timeline that not only do I think this is the best out of those films, I actually think it's the only good one, personally, because I'm not a fan of 09, and like you said, even Into Darkness was just a mess. Even though both have good ideas and both have, things that I like in them, whether it be starship designs, sorry, Will, or various bits and pieces and action sequences that can be really good if they're kept to a Star Trek type thing. But it's just like you say, Star Trek Beyond did maybe seem like an episode of the show, but I don't think that was a bad thing, especially when you're coming off the back of Star Trek / Star Wars 09 and then Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, the inferior version. It was a welcome relief to have an episode of Star Trek personally. So I really I thought it was good that what it did with the whole somebody that only can really exist in war, and then what the Federation would mean to them. I thought that was an intriguing idea. Maybe they didn't do as much as they could have with it. Again, don't love everything in the film. I think there's no need for a fucking motocross BMX bike sequence to happen in the middle of it. And the idea that Krall, I love the idea, like I said, that he's like a person that can't exist outside of war. Don't love that he was a human that has to be mutated into this weird creature, because there's no real reason for it. Just have him be the dude. And then you can actually get Idris Elba not under tons of latex as well, but whatever, I guess. But yeah, I was fine with the Enterprise getting destroyed because it was an ugly design to start with, and the Enterprise A at the end of the movie is a much better design, even though it only appears for 2 minutes. And I frankly prefer the Franklin. Frankly, the Franklin, which again, it's basic, but I love that it has a bit of lineage from the NX-01 somewhere between that and the kind of Kelvin Enterprise. So
Yeah,
I like that. But yeah, I'm not getting into just ship talk again because half of the audience will glaze over. But yeah, so I like...
Will's just rage quit.
Yeah, Will's just turned the episode off. They all look the bloody same. Yeah. Anyway, but no, so I genuinely do like Star Trek Beyond. I think it was criminal that it did so poorly at the likes of the box office and stuff, but and either way, we're both saying it's a hit, so we'll take no more time on that one.
Yeah,
that went on a bit too long. So, yeah, 2 hits is still a positive. I'm going to take that, even though you basically said all the reasons you hate it and then said hit. But never mind. Let me see if I can find.
I'm keeping the audience guessing.
That's true. So the second thing on the hit or miss section for today, sorry, there's no more musical cues. It is simply hit or miss the Prodigy Starfleet uniforms. Yes, that's right. We're bringing this back. We dealt with the lower decks ones. Now we're doing the Prodigy ones. Hit or miss.
I do not like these uniforms. They're kind of like the animated version to me of the motion picture uniforms. They're too tight, one piece, and they're not very flattering to whoever wears them.
No. And when you think of some of the crew, like particularly Rocta, bless her, has to wear this thing. And, it's no fault of her. She's a giant rock creature.
Yeah. But when you surprised Dal doesn't turn around and look at Janeway hologram and say, well, what about your uniform? That's kind of cool. What's this shit?
Well, she changed into theirs, though, didn't she, in the end?
Yeah. So, I
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I know we can generally find good in most of the uniforms because we had this discussion a couple of weeks back with Dom with regards to the Cerritos ones. And yeah. And again, I don't know, if it's a different uniform because the Protostar is, kind of its prototype and they wanted something special. But again, it throws another spanner into the works of just what is Starfleet doing with these uniforms. There must be one heck of a budget going down. I can kind of see the lower decks explanation as, why they have their uniform. But you reach a point where there's that many uniforms in Starfleet for that many different branches and that many different, classes of ship that it becomes meaningless to have any kind of Starfleet uniform in the first place. And I get they're going for an animated look, but considering a few episodes prior to this, they had the Kobayashi Maru, so obviously, you had little flashbacks to previous costumes. And again, like I said with the Janeway one, this just seems a very lackluster kind of ensemble to me.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Like I was going to say, my headcanon explanation was originally that or maybe these are like trainee uniforms, similarly to how you have like different Starfleet Academy uniforms, or Voyager even had the flight suit uniform for the Delta Flyer when they're racing and stuff. But that kind of goes out the window when you realize that on the holo recordings, Captain Chakotay is wearing the same one. So it's like, so it is just literally every ship has its own freaking uniform at this point.
Yeah.
But in terms of the designs, though, I think you're right. It's probably one of the worst because it's just quite plain. And I feel bad saying that because I love Prodigy and I love the showrunners. I don't want to criticize their decisions. But yeah, I mean, what is that color, that weird blue-gray thing? You know what I mean? It's just... Having said that, mind, I will say I prefer these to the idea that they'd all just be in their civvies, because when the show started, I was like, I just don't love that this looks like a bit generic kid show because they're not wearing, and I'd rather them wear these than like nothing at all. So it's preferable in that way. But again, the fact that they show like Admiral Janeway in the All Good Things uniform, and it's like, well, just use that.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes you get the impression that they're introducing new designs for the sake of introducing new designs. And while I think it works with things like the ships, when it comes to uniforms, you can take it a little too far. And, these are definitely, in my opinion, a little too far.
I think I agree. And I will say I like the Prodigy com badge design, but I just don't like that it exists because, again, it makes no sense because it's got no lineage to anything and it's not used anywhere else in the fleet. So it's like, well, why are we doing this?
Yeah, it just seems extravagant. And like I say, you just imagine some poor, high-ranking Starfleet official sat in a starbase somewhere with his head in his hands, and his assistant walks in, and what's the matter, sir? We've got a resurgent Dominion in the Gamma Quadrant. They're going to be invading. We need a fleet of ships. Okay, can we do that? No, I'm sorry, we've blown our entire budget on uniforms.
I wouldn't say that's a concern considering they have replicators at this point, but yeah, certainly it's very weird because, like you said, the word uniform would imply uniformity, and there's actually none during this era because this is now like 4 uniforms that are in use in the same year. And it's like, come on, even back in the next gen DS9 era, it was only 2, and you could kind of wave it away, but now it's just stupid, And plus, at least they used the same com badge back in the day, And, I have to say, for me, not a fan. It just looks a bit drab. But I had a similar thought when it came to the Season 3 Discovery uniforms because I don't love that color scheme. And I'm glad they changed them out for actual colorful ones.
That's a fair assessment. I mean, it took me a while to get used to the Season 1 and 2 Discovery uniforms. I didn't jump at that one straight away.
I liked them immediately, but I also was confused because they make no sense for where they are, considering it's meant to be like after the cage. So you've got to somehow headcanon that they've got those sort of 3 division color type, jumpers, and then all of a sudden they're in Enterprise jumpsuits for no reason, and it's like, oh my head, I can't deal with it. But I will say I don't hate these uniforms, but I will just say soft miss and be gentle with it. I think at the moment. So,
yeah, mine's a solid miss.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, wow. Well, people that always complain if we're always too, generous or too nice about things. There you go. We both disliked something.
Yeah,
you're happy now.
We're not just fanboys for the sake of being fanboys. We do have our own minds.
Exactly. Okay, let me move through. So the next thing on the list is time travel themed. As I said, I will throw a couple of those in there, and it is an episode. I'm dreading to think what's going to happen here, but we'll see. So it is an episode of Voyager, hit or miss the episode Relativity. I know we've done the ship, but this is the episode.
Oh God, you might have to. You might have to give me a quick synopsis here.
Relativity was the episode of season 5 where, out of nowhere, the Federation time ship Relativity recruits 7 of 9 to go back in time because Braxton has got temporal craziness or something from all of the Future's End shenanigans of previous times, and he's trying to go back in time and blow up Voyager during its launch and various times. And so 7 of 9 has to go back and then get sent back again, and then get sent and not get temporal sickness, and then go back once more. And it's a mess. Let's be honest. It's what it is.
I'll be completely frank with you. I think I've watched the entirety of Voyager once, and it's about 2 years ago now. And considering, I can't really remember what I did last week. It's some things stand out to me, some things don't. I do think a rewatch is in order. When it comes to this episode, I can't really say hit or miss with any definitive nomenclature. However, with the exception, I think, of the fight, I did find most Voyager episodes a hit. So I can always, I think with I don't know what your approach to Star Trek is, but with my approach to Star Trek is, I can always, for the most part, suspend disbelief. So what a lot of people will consider a bad episode of Star Trek, to me, it's still Star Trek. So it beats 99% of anything else on TV. But this one, honestly, it doesn't really stand out. I mean, I could cheat, I guess, and look it up now on Wikipedia and stuff like that. But again,
I'm surprised because I would have thought it's, for better or worse, I would have thought it would be quite a standout episode because it's so different to the norm. And it's notable for being the one where we see not only Voyager in the what is it, Utopia Planitia yards before launching. But we also see 7 of 9 in Starfleet uniform without Borg implants, which was a shock for a lot of people, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I can remember vague bits of it, but as for the plot, and obviously I can remember the relativity of the ship because we discussed it a few episodes ago, and I kind of liked it, I believe. Although again, memory, I may be wrong, but yeah, I honestly, I'm going to say a soft hit on the proviso that I do need to watch a lot of these Voyager episodes again.
Fair enough. In which case, I may be the unpopular one then, because I don't like this episode. I used to, when I first saw it when I was younger, I thought it was the coolest thing ever because it's so different and because it has my mind was blown at the idea of it's an actual Federation time ship and we're in the 29th century or whatever. I'm seeing what life's like and seeing their uniforms and their ships and everything. But it just gets so stupid for me when they start hopping 7 of 9 through time to try to find this bomb on Voyager. And then, like I said, the fact that they have to reintegrate versions of her. And in the end, it's like, oh, we can't do this again because you'll get the time sickness and it'll kill you. And, you have 2 versions of 7 of 9, one that's just been freshly recruited and one that's about to die of brain scramblies, basically. And it's just so stupid. And then the big reveal being, oh, the person planting the bomb is Captain Braxton, who's actually here on the ship, but in the future will go too crazy because of the events and stuff. So it spits on Future's End, which is an episode I actually like. Makes no sense. It just becomes a ridiculous, convoluted mess. And ultimately, it just doesn't seem to have a reason to exist. It's just like, well, as much as I love the design of the ship and the idea, as I've mentioned before, the idea of time travel, and I'd love to see even a show that's set at the time when Starfleet are starting to launch time ships. It could be a really cool idea, as long as they don't do something like this. Don't start doing the whole, we'll recruit her from there, but no, now we'll go back to an earlier time and recruit her so that we don't do whatever gives her the messed up brain, and then we'll do another time, and then we'll reintegrate them, and then no. It's just stupid. Let it go. So for me, I'm afraid it's a miss.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, I could go back and watch it and think, holy shit, Mike's right. But as I say,
I did like it a lot when I first saw it, but it doesn't hold up for me. The next thing, I have no idea why, but out of nowhere, hit or miss, Earth space dock from I think Star Trek 3 was its first appearance, and then obviously it's seen in the other DOS movies and things. So hit or miss.
It's a hit. I love this design. And I know we had, we had the kind of upside down regular one in the motion picture, and we didn't really see anything other than that than the standard design in the original series, which we use, as the template for K7 and that kind of thing. So when I saw that, I love this. I love this design. I loved it when I first saw it, and I love it just as much now. I'm not sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. Haven't they added some elements to it for in the trailer for the new season of Picard?
Yeah, but in fairness, that's nearly 200 years or so later. So
yeah,
it's
I mean,
understandable.
they've got the money's worth out of this, which is probably a good thing with the amount of spending on uniforms. But yeah, I absolutely love this. The scene in Trek 3 where the Enterprise approaches space dock and Horner's soundtrack kicking in, love it. I became very proprietorial about it, so that when it was then used in Next Generation, I kind of felt a little. It put my nose out of joint for some reason when I saw the Enterprise D.
I was so excited to see the Enterprise D where the refit had been, and I was like, "Oh wow, cool!"
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously become a lot less fanboy since then. And I don't get irate at the slightest thing, but I think it's just a great design, and I did up until recently. I don't really have time for it, but I did play a lot of Star Trek Online, and when you approach Earth and you dock at this space dock, it does feel like home. But I got that impression from the movies anyway. I love the design, and I love the way it's lit. I just think it's a beautiful piece of shipbuilding.
For the audio listeners, by the way, if you aren't familiar with the movies or anything, we're talking about the mushroom, as it's called, design of the Earth space dock. But Yeah, I will say it made a lot more sense using this in Next Generation than using the inexplicably gigantic regular one in The Measure of a Man, which is just dwarfing the Enterprise D somehow.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, it's so annoying because, yeah, just such a daft choice. But anyway, in terms of the space dock, apologies, this is going to be my semi-regular shill. Yes, I do have the Eagle Moss model of it, and I love it.
I was actually just going to ask.
Well, I can't be blamed for shilling for them or whatever now because they don't exist. So, you know,
someone out there
is
desperately trying to bring, you know, the inventory from Eagle Moss back, if only for the chance that they can sponsor this podcast.
They're getting free publicity out of me, I tell you.
Yeah.
What. No, it's amazing how well the model captures like exactly this. And yeah, obviously the stand has a little sort of ring that the bottom part slips into in a slightly phallic way. But it's just awesome. It's pride of place. I'll probably take a picture and put it up in the episode just so you can see the model anyway, because, you know, branding. But yeah, I just think it's such a good design. And for some reason, I just much prefer it to any other, like, maybe not regular one, which I'm also really fond of, but I think this is head and shoulders above the terrible Cardassian design of DS9 or bits and pieces, or the attempt at Starfleet headquarters in Discovery during its first season, which is just like a big spire. And it's like, what are you doing? But then, obviously, in the second season, when they went on their cannon repair tour, you could clearly see that the outline of the newly built Starbase One is this mushroom shape. And I was like, yay! Correcting your error. But yeah, I just love it. I think it looks great. As you said, the way it's lit, the way it looks and everything, the way that it's got to be huge because only the little top doors fit in the spaceships and the sense of scale and everything. So I love it as well. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's 2 pretty mega hits for that one. Let me move to... Is it your favorite designer space station, by the way, or are you secretly a Terok Nor fan?
Oh, it's nice. It grew on me while I watched it, but it will always be the mushroom for me.
You know, Vian's never coming back on now we've criticized Cardassian architecture.
I know.
Anyway, so this next one is another time travel themed one and another potentially controversial one. This is going to spark some discussion and potentially some raised voices from me, if nothing else. Hit or miss the Agnes Jurati Borg Queen. I could barely get the words out. DK, take us away.
Oh. I love the Borg. I love Agnes Jurati. The Agnes Jurati Borg Queen, however, just looks stupid. When you look at, oh God, I love that. I mean, I'm not going into the plotting here. Spoilers for especially.
Oh, I will.
Oh dear God. I mean, we've had this discussion prior to this. You know, what for you is a plot hole, for me is an opportunity, that kind of thing. So, from that aspect, I can live with it. I know I can feel your heckles raising from here. From that aspect, I can live with it. I do like the concept. However, I just think the design. Yeah, honestly, I mean,
you're perfectly fine with the fact that this race of indestructible cyborgs that have subverted the will of billions, if not trillions, of countless people are suddenly under the thrall of some young woman who's just like, no, not letting you take me over. I've got my own will now. Like, what the? Oh!
Yeah, but in all fairness, mate, it's Agnes Jurati. I'd be the same in the face of.
No, I do no. I'm not buying that. I'm not having it. She's just a
all
woman.
All she had to say to me is "Mister," and I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm putty." No, I kind of like the fact that it leaves it open, and I again, I know we disagree on that with regards to plot contrivances and, you know, holes that you could drive a freighter through. But I do like it, and as a fan of the extended canon and the books, I do think there's a tremendous opportunity there. It would be nice to see them explore it, obviously, until something else on screen comes along and kicks that into touch. But it would be, I think it's a great opportunity to explore further, or even if, fingers crossed they ever do a spin-off series from Picard. I'm hoping personally for I would love to see a Seven and Raffi spin-off. But I do like that concept, and I know we fundamentally disagree on that point.
Oh, yeah.
However, when it comes to the design, whatever you think of Annie Wershing's portrayal as opposed to Alice Krieg or anybody else that played the Borg Queen, you at least still kept that kind of essential design, that essential look. It might have been tweaked, but you instantly recognize that as the Borg Queen. And as much as I love the concept of Jurati as the Borg Queen, I cannot get past that look. I can take the concept seriously, but when she stood there on the bridge with that look, it just does not. I mean, I'm not saying I should go in finding the Borg Queen to turn on, but
I don't know. You're supposed to do that in First Contact, aren't you? So I don't think that's that unreasonable to expect a little bit of.
It just looks very low budget, this version, and that's what I don't like about it. And I'm thinking, you've had that essential Borg Queen design for most of this season. Why have you thrown that away?
I think we know why. I was just getting to that. I think it's one of those situations where the design is unfortunately a slave to bad writing, because the idea of, first of all, you have to have something which can completely disguise her identity, because you're playing it like some big reveal, which is stupid to start with, and also makes no sense because, again, Jurati was on that ship at the same time at the start of the season. But never mind. So there's that you kind of have to have something where it can be completely covered in black with a hood, which the Queen has never had before.
No.
Again, completely nonsense.
I mean, from the word go, it just signposts that this is someone that you're instantly familiar with, and at that point, any kind of reveal is essentially pointless, because you've already been, by the time it is revealed to be Jurati, you've already pretty much guessed.
Oh, I mean, it's basically signposted from episode 4. The moment she gets infected with the nanoprobes and stuff, you're like, well, then we know who it is. There's no surprise here.
But at that point, you are expecting, it can't be that obvious. Surely there's got to be some kind of twist.
Yeah, there isn't. It was.
So, I mean, the writing on that part let it down. But in the very first episode, when a Borg Queen turns up, and she looks nothing like any Borg Queen you've seen before, and yet she's got some kind of Tron face mask on. Yeah. Your first instinct is, this is somebody that we know. And you shouldn't have that. It would have been better to not have the Borg Queen appear on the bridge in the first place and have her just,
especially considering, I mean, you double down on the ridiculousness, because then the whole kind of crux of the season is Picard activates the auto-destruct because he doesn't trust the Queen, and she tries to play the music to be like, you can't trust me. And it's just like, just open your fucking mask if you're worried about him trusting you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I did. I did think that was a misstep, and I did think they could have done that a lot better. It's difficult because, again, like many things of Star Trek, there are aspects of it that I love. There are aspects of it that I just think, come on. And
going back to the design thing, I think it also sucks because they kind of have to do this stupid mealy-mouthed half measure of, well, she's going to be assimilated, but we still have to make sure that she looks likable and human and relatable and nice. And it's just like, no, because that isn't the bloody Borg. You've just admitted your own fault. So instead of looking like a cyborg, she just looks like Alison Pill in a weird goth gown and then some terrible CGI on top of her head. It's not the Borg at all.
I see it. As I say, I mean, I know we fundamentally disagree on the concept. I love the concept. You don't. That's fair enough.
I can't get over it now.
I think that is that for me is a hit. The actual design of the Queen and the way she was introduced is a miss.
Yeah.
I think on balance, I'm gonna have to say a soft hit, because it's more of the potential for me that I like. And I know that's probably a bit hypocritical when I went back to, I think it was last year when we were talking about the Navarre. It's the same kind of thing. It's a provisional hit.
It's not.
For me, it's a provisional hit, but it's on the proviso that I would like to see more. And I don't mean see more as in having everything explained, having the entire history. It just would be nice to be maybe picked up, but it's obviously not going to be picked up on because she's not signed on for season 3. So unless there is going to be some kind of spin-off, or unless they are going to put it in some kind of extended canon in a novel form or comic
She
form.
did wear a mask, in fairness, so
Well, yeah, but I don't know. It's a hit on the idea of where it could be taken, because to me the Borg had become kind of stale, and unlike you,
no.
I was happy with the way that they kind of put a full stop to it at the end of the Destiny trilogy, because at that point, I think
every sentence that you say, you could just cut to the meme of me, and Mike took that personally.
Yeah. No, I just liked it because I think, you've taken it kind of as far as you can.
I don't think that's true at all.
I do. I mean, they when you look at it, they gave us a decent episode in Enterprise, but even that had its share of detractors, because although it was atmospheric, although it had some scare point, it's just rehashing what we've seen before.
That was more just inexplicable in terms of, I mean, why on earth would a 24th century race that gives the Federation trouble there be defeated by a 20? That from initial idea, that was flawed because it's just stupid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
but that's the point. I mean, you can only go so far with an idea, and this is, I think, what a lot of people have with any particular race, be it the Klingons, the Romulans. I mean, as I said last episode, you didn't like the Ferengi, the exploring of the doubling down on the capitalist culture, and it was I think you get to a point where you think, all right, enough with the Klingon stuff. Don't get me wrong.
I think you're making excuses for bad writing. If you're a good enough writer, you can work within the lines and you can make that really work without having to completely alter something.
Maybe. I mean, I personally, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, I have never found the Romulans that interesting, other than, say, other than original series to Next Generation series. By the time it came to, things like Nemesis, I was just so done with the Romulans. And
we are on completely different pages, because I think the Romulans, even the Klingons, and especially the Borg, really only began to fall apart for me when they changed what they fundamentally are, because they were just bad writers and they couldn't work within the lines. And so it was like when they introduced the Remans to the Romulans and they're completely different, it destroyed the point. And when they're having this, the idea of, fair enough, I actually love that Klingons had a little bit of evolution between TOS and TNG. They weren't just bad guys, they evolved a little bit. But then when Discovery came out and again just did a complete redesign of them and completely changed what they were about, and then in the second season immediately backtracked because nobody liked that and were like, no, don't worry, we'll fix it, we'll make them back to canon again. It's like, what are you doing? Just stick with what you've got. It's perfectly fine, And this just...
the thing that I have with... In my opinion, you can overuse a concept and you can overuse it to absurdum. I know you're a Doctor Who. I'm a fan of Doctor Who. As much as I love Sacha Dhawan's portrayal of the Master, I would have been perfectly happy for that final two-parter of Capaldi to have been the end of the Master as a concept. I think if you stretch out a concept enough, it becomes less and less and less interesting over time. You can throw new things at it, but eventually it's going to become convoluted to a point when none of it.
At what point do you back off from that, though? Because if that's the case, then why are we still making Star Trek? It's the same central idea, and if taking your logic to its natural extreme, it's just like, well, I don't want to watch it because the idea's played out. And yet, the most popular of the modern shows is Strange New Worlds, which goes back to exactly what it was supposed to be from the start, and doesn't veer wildly off course.
However, look at your reaction to that Gorn episode.
Yeah, because they changed it. That was exactly my point. Just stick to what you know.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you get to a point where you change things so radically in order to make them interesting, like the Remans, where you
can't tell me the Gorn weren't plenty interesting to start with. They appeared twice in like 50 years. That was just change for the sake of change. There's no reason why they couldn't have worked within what we had. What they did there was watch Alien and think, oh, we want to make our own version of that, and it's terrible writing.
But if you look at things such as the Klingons, such as the Romulans, obviously people are thinking we need to introduce some new elements to this. Hence, you end up with the Remans. And I just think it's. I mean, we're big comic book fans. As much as I love, some people prefer Peter Parker, some people prefer Miles Morales. I'm obviously digressing a little here. But I think if you get a concept, you do have a tendency to run it, especially when it's a shared universe. People do have a tendency sometimes to run a concept into the ground. And the only way of reviving that concept at that point is by introducing new elements.
Are you seriously trying to tell me that every attempt to revitalize Superman or Batman or Spider-Man has been hugely successful? Because no, everybody rails against it. And there's a reason these characters are operating within established lines for 90 odd years. Because
they are. But when you get to a point where you've got three Jokers, at some point you're going to have to step back and think, we're maybe over-egging this pudding a little.
But that's to my point, though. You're kind of proving my point, which is just stay with what you know and what you've got. Like, you hate Batman v Superman because it's not those characters. And your logic isn't, well, we've done as much as we can with those characters, so let's explore Snyder's take on them or whatever. It's just, no, because at that point, it's not those characters anymore. So why?
Because I like the stories that have a definitive ending. And if, say, the Master is dealt with once and for all and doesn't appear, in essence, to me, he remains that classic character, or he or she remains that classic character that's had a fantastic streak, and then you move on to another concept.
I guess, but I mean,
it were never going to happen because, as I say, we're in the extended canon. But to me, the Borg in the novels were dealt with because at that point, every single novel was dealing with the Borg. And you just think, this is stupid now. Janeway's taken over by the Borg. She's like, and
no, that was dumb. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah. So, so when you have a strong concept, I do like the idea of them putting a definitive end to that concept.
That's contradictory to what you're saying about the Borg, though, because what they've done is completely alter what they are so that they can carry a story on that has nothing to do with what they are at their core. Do you know what I mean?
No,
if it was supposed to under it, fair enough. Like, if you'd asked me, I like Endgame, then yes, have that be an end point, have them be destroyed, end of. Don't then go, no, it turns out these guys aren't actually all that bad. We're just going to turn them good, which is stupid. It's contrary to everything they are. It doesn't make sense.
That's a fair enough assessment. And if they were going to leave it at Endgame, I would have been perfectly happy by that. But for a fact that with a concept as strong as the Borg, they're going to throw them up eventually.
But you just said it wasn't that strong. You know what I mean? You just said it had worn out. So
it is worn out. So they have introduced this thing, this new concept. And
so why not create something new? Why alter something?
I'd have been perfectly happy for them to do that. Perfectly happy for him to do that. But it was inevitable because it was like, we'll never bring the Klingons back. That's never going to happen. They're going to bring the Borg back because, let's be honest, when it came to things like Next Generation, people would much rather see the Borg than they would the Ferengi. Or,
I mean, they were only in 4 stories of Next Gen, though. People forget that. Do you know what I mean? They made an impact, but that's 4 stories out of, 177 episodes or something. So
yeah, but people are automatically going to go back to, and this is reinforcing your point that it depends on the writers. People are going to go back to a well that's proven successful before, even if they end up pissing in that well. Yeah. And it was only, nobody, with regards to the production of modern Trek, I would imagine that nobody even gave one scintilla of thought that the Borg, would finally dealt an end in a novel form. When they thought, if we bring the Borg back, that's going to be much more impactful. But it does away with it. It was inevitable that they were going to be brought back. I didn't like that they were going to be brought back because it immediately...
Oh, and that's not what I'm saying. My issue is that, like I said, you've fundamentally changed everything about them to create this dumb character idea, because you can't tell me it's fine and people are volunteering for this. Again, it comes back to the Unimatrix Zero thing of, people are now volunteering to get horribly mangled and mutilated. And again, if they're not linked to a collective consciousness, then they're not the Borg in that sense either. They're just a bunch of horribly mutilated people hanging out on a ship together. Do you know what I mean? It's nonsense.
Yeah, I can see your point with that. I do like the idea that it does have the potential, because it is something that you can explore further and maybe reconcile. I don't like how they were brought back in the first place, but I can kind of dig with the concept that, yes, I don't want to get into it because we'll be here all night, but basically they're now 2 collectives out there, essentially.
Even you have to admit, though, that's the kind of stupid part, is that because they can't commit to it, because it would make no sense and completely alter the show, they don't even commit to the fact that they're fundamentally changed. It's just, these are just a second collective consciousness, which again is nonsense, because if they're a collective consciousness, who's volunteering for that? Nobody wants their free will removed. Do you know what I mean?
Have you seen the GOP? Come on, dude.
That's different. That's cultism. That's that's not like I'm volunteering to link to a computer for all eternity. You know what I mean? Anyway, we'd be here all night, but for me, miss, for you, I think tentative hit is as fair.
A tentative hit, in the proviso that somebody would, they do kind of explore the potential and not just kind of hand wave it away and say, the Borg is still there, and introduce it again and again and again.
It'll be interesting to see, because I think they've basically scuppered themselves, because I can't see a satisfactory way that they can really explore this now. But either way, we'll move on. So the next thing on the list today, we do have 2 more. And this is kind of related to the space docky thing, because I wanted to do a different version. So hit or miss the Starfleet headquarters from the 3190s. So Discovery season 3 onwards, basically. Take it away.
This is a strange one.
No, that's Benedict Cumberbatch.
I do like the design. I'm not so sure about it being piloted as a ship.
Well, multiple ships. It splits into different things.
I don't know. It's
that's weird.
I like
Wow.
Yeah, I like it, but it doesn't instill that sense of home that the mushroom does. It seems very clinical, very sterile.
Even when it was in the sort of weird protective field in season 3, you didn't feel a sense of, at the very least, like security, maybe, or protection.
But it was kind of a base under siege version of security, which, I mean, obviously, essentially, it's kind of what it was. But it never felt. It felt like a military encampment at that point to me more than home.
Right.
So
see, I think there's good story reason for it not to feel like home, because the point is it's a federation where Earth is no longer a member. So it's kind of the fact that it is basically, like I said, and I wasn't fond of the design when it was just there and it was in a shield and we're hiding, because that's not very Starfleet. And I don't particularly love the design anyway, because it's just basic and kind of weird, whatever it is. But the selling point for me was at the end of season 4, when you found out that far from being just this weird design that we were going to hide somewhere, it splits into multiple things. And the idea of a Federation under attack that's on the dwindle, having this like transportable, pilotable, multiple ship escape pods type of version of a headquarters, I think is genius.
Yeah, but
I mean, I could have done with a better
You are a
design.
huge Power Rangers fan, so that kind of shit is right in your wheelhouse anyway.
That wasn't the reason.
Yeah, you don't want to admit it, but deep down, it's there. Yeah,
No, because at least the
kinda like
Megazords all look nice when they're combined. This looks crap, frankly.
this one looks like an office toy. Yeah, I kind of like it. I don't dislike it. It's a soft hit for me. It's nice.
I would say the same thing, but for different reasons, which is so weird.
Yeah. I would like to see more of it, and I would like to see more of it other than a few meeting rooms. You know.
That's probably a budget thing, to be honest, isn't it?
Yeah. If you could see more of it as you did in the mushroom in Trek 3, it would be nice. I mean, is it in any fit state after last season to come back together?
Yeah, presumably it can, because like I said, that's part of, I thought, what the whole point was, is that it's maybe had to move before, and instead of being this immobile huge thing, like for example when they had to move DS9 to the wormhole and it was basically just everyone hold on tight, we could just end up blowing ourselves up to move like 3 inches or whatever. This thing you can actually move, it moves about. But and I just love that it has its own little registry plaque and everything, as if it was like a ship that combines into a base, But,
I do like it as as a soft hit, like you said. It's probably both for very different reasons, but yeah.
So you'd say soft hit if it stays as one thing, and I'm saying soft hit.
No. I mean, it's a soft hit in general, And,
but I think we both kind of like it. I don't think anybody dislikes it. It maybe could have done better, but I just love that end of season 4 moment and of seeing Tilly and dude from the Mummy piloting it.
I do
Admiral
like.
Vance, that's it.
I do like the kind of the evolution that the Federation style wise has gone through in those intervening years.
Because it does look super futuristic.
Some of the ship designs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Anyway, so I mean, soft hits from both of us. I should really have included Archer Space Dock, which is a lot more traditional as well, but I didn't. So another day, maybe. We'll get to the last one before the entire audience falls asleep. So this is probably not going to take very long, in fairness. The last hit or miss for today is hit or miss. It's a character from Lower Decks, Jennifer Shreyan. Hit or miss?
Hit.
Okay. Moving on. Is that all you're going to give us?
Well,
why is she a hit?
Well, without trying to be too base, she's an Andorian woman, and I've got a thing for those. However, if I'm going to give more of a technical answer, I like that they fleshed her out, and I was worried that her and Mariner were going to go their separate ways. I figured they were going to go for that angle, and I was pleasantly surprised that they didn't. They took it in the opposite direction. I think she's a decent character, and I would like to I would like to see more of her as part of a regular cast member.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say the same. A hit for the reason that I liked the one joke idea of, haha, it's an alien with a very human name, when she was just called Jennifer before we had the surname or anything. I found it amusing, but as you say, that would have been amusing and fine on its own, but then to run with that and actually make an established and decent character out of that initial joke, which again is my kind of humor all over. Haha, alien called Jen. But anyway, so to then use that character to give more of a fleshed out character to Mariner as well, who had previously been, I think, portrayed very much as, when are her and Boimler going to get together? and to actually develop that into, well, she's not necessarily just into guys, and she's not necessarily into Boimler even, and she might be looking elsewhere. And even the idea that they started out seeming like mortal enemies, but it was that kind of pulling pigtails in the playground thing, as it turns out, and maybe they just liked each other, is an intriguing angle. And just the character is funny whenever she appears, or charming. And I love Lauren Lapkus, who does the voice. Always thought she was a great comedian, thought she was good in even The Big Bang Theory, despite being a good thing in, some occasional bits of crap. So yeah, I just think I'm with you. I hope she appears more. I hope we get more character development. And I've seen very good cosplays and stuff of her as well. So yeah, great job. Definitely. So yeah, I think we're both going to say hit for Jennifer. Not before time. We will move on to the episode review, and we will begin our analysis. DK, we're here to review Prodigy, believe it or not.
I know.
Well, hopefully we'll get through it quite quickly. It's a short episode that we're reviewing, so that's fine. Awesome. Right. So, we're here to review, as we mentioned, the Star Trek Prodigy episode Time Amok. Quite a short one. I think it's only, 22 minutes or something, like most episodes of Prodigy, so there won't be too much to talk about. And on that note, I do have a tiny behind-the-scenes section, as in literally one thing, because I looked up, and with it being a newer episode and, not being a lot to say about it, all I could find was this. So I'm not going to bother playing music or acting like it's some kind of big deal. I will just say that, as we mentioned up top, the star date for this episode is 607125.6. If you think that star date looks really unusual, it does. There's a reason for that. According to the producer, Aaron Waltke, it is the first hint that time's being distorted, namely that hologram Janeway's temporal settings are already being affected, as she's the one doing the log, by the approaching tachyon storm, something which she observes later in the episode. So if you are railing about the fact that it's a 6-digit star date and it shouldn't be, it's actually for a reason. So, yeah. So I'm just gonna hit the episode piece by piece, because I don't really bother with it being so short. I didn't really bother with sections or anything. So I'll just hit some key points, and we'll probably talk back and forth, DK, and try to keep it as short as we can, shorter than the HoM is probably. So we open with Janeway's log, as I mentioned, and
no worries.
We open with that log and a gorgeous shot of the Proto-Star, which is a very good ship design, and I love the way it's animated. That's not specific to this episode, but it's worth seeing. And I just love that, again, this is so recognizably Janeway that even just the little moments of giving a log, like, because of the disastrous first contact last week, the whole crew's morale is low, and they have to learn that falling down is easy, but it's the getting up that's hard. And I love that, like I said, it's Janeway's character absolutely in a nutshell in a lot of ways. It's continuity from the previous week, because they just dealt with, as mentioned, the disastrous first contact, and with Dal meeting the Ferengi woman that is his adoptive mother, who would pop up later in the episode to essentially sell them out to the diviner as well. So appreciate a little bit of continuity. I don't always have to have it, but a little bit, I think, especially in a show like this, which seems to have an intriguing mystery going, I appreciate it. What about you, DK?
Yeah, I do like that little thread that's running through, and obviously, you've got that larger arc with the diviner and Dreadnought, and it's nice to have it touched upon. It does kind of, make it feel like it's related back to the universe as a whole, and it's not just a series of bottle episodes.
Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with standalone episodes, and I think this probably is the closest that Prodigy gets, but I do think kudos has to go to the writers for fitting the ongoing plot into this. So the idea of the way they used Dreadnought as kind of another obstacle, along with all of the time distortions and things, and the fact that they seemed to hint that maybe that was why the vehicle replicator didn't work, because he was holding it up in a different kind of timeline or time fracture or whatever, with creating the second version of himself, which again is a head trip to think of just as an idea as well. So
I've got to give kudos to the writers. They've managed to fit in such a short space of time so much.
Yeah, 100%. It does not feel like it's as short as it is in the best of ways. Not like, this is dragging on, but just like, as you say, when you sit down and look at what happened in the episode, you're like, there's such a lot fit in there. And I don't think anything's particularly short-changed necessarily either. No. I mean, we could have sat with things for longer, but I think they have just the same level of impact as if they didn't. And, for today's generation of short attention spans, it's probably a better way to introduce them to Star Trek, maybe.
Yeah. So, yeah. Definitely.
That's cool. And yeah, speaking of Star Trek and the trekkiness of it all, I always love these kind of stories about crews coming together, and the fact that they use the familiar chicken, fox, and the grain crossing the river type riddle is such a cool like idea, because it is, we understand it culturally as like the only way you're going to figure this out is working together. You know, you put your heads together, work it out, and they almost like each have a piece of the puzzle. I think it's Zero that chimes in with the key point of like, well, there's nothing to say we can't bring another thing back with us. And if they'd listened and kind of, you know, pooled their intelligence and their ingenuity, they probably would have come up with something. So it's a great shorthand way of saying like, these people, they're not quite on the same level, but if they were just a crew, they could do so much, you know. So yeah.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we have, again, slight continuity, but this ongoing thing that they kind of want Roktak to be the security officer because she's basically a giant prick creature. You know, she's the Thing from the Fantastic Four. So that's naturally what, you know, that's naturally what they assume she'd be good for. And I think that that's an interesting, without it getting too preachy or even really getting into it, I think that's an interesting exploration of prejudice and bigotry, in that they basically take one look at her physical appearance and pigeonhole her into what she should be. And I love that this episode explains her basically saying, no, I don't want to be that. Just because you think it's what I'm suited for, I want to find my own path. And I just adore that idea. What do you think? Do you think I'm reading too much into that, or is that
no? Yeah, I think that, and I'm not sure if they were kind of thinking that maybe the audience was kind of having that feeling towards her as well. You know what I mean? So they wanted to, not just for the, because obviously you see a big, you know, in essence, you see the big rock creature in any kind of media, and your mind automatically leaps to one thing. And the fact that I think that they gave her, you know, quite a lot of diverse training in this to make her much more than she is. I think not only is it, you know, a comment on the crew around her, but on the audience itself. And I think it's kind of feeding into that never judge a book by its cover vibe that you that is integral to Trek.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they'd already kind of subverted that with the idea that before they kind of got the translator working, you just heard this gruff, sort of rough sounding voice. And then when you actually heard Roktak realize it's just a little girl, which again is like mind blowing, because it looks like this terrifying rock creature and in actual fact just a scared little girl. But then you kind of ask yourself, you examine your own prejudices and think, well, why not? No reason why it couldn't just be, you know. So I kind of love that, and I love that about this character. And like I said, the fact that she, despite kind of coming across a little bit sometimes as meek, she's actually willing to stand up for herself, which again is a nice subversion when she's like, look, I don't want to do this. You know, stop trying to make it a thing. I'm not going to be the security chief. So yeah. I will say, the first time I watched this, I was truly shocked that even though we're only 8 episodes in, they've done the reveal that they're not actually Starfleet cadets and they've stolen the ship, because I expected that to be a much longer runner that they were going to go with. So when that kind of gets resolved here, and then I was like, oh, dang, what's going to happen? And Hologram Janeway's basically, nah, I don't care. You know, whatever you are, you're still my crew, you know. So.
Yeah. Especially, you know, later on after they've solved the problem.
Yeah. Oh, I'll get to that for sure, because I just adore that as well. So, but yeah, I just love that, because part of me was like, well, how would Hologram Janeway's programming react? How would Starfleet react? And I don't want this to become a thing where, you know, a lazier writer might be like, and now they're on the run from Starfleet as well, and maybe they've got to reprogram what they kind of do in a way at the end of the season, reprogram Janeway to evil and immorality. And yet I think it is very Starfleet and very in Janeway's character to say, you know, okay, you're not a bunch of Starfleet cadets or whatever, and you may have stolen the ship, but you seem nice and you've clearly just lost little kids, and it's still my duty, my programming, whatever, to mentor you. So, you know, as long as you're a crew and you're on this ship, I will look after you. And I was like, that's just such a beautiful, without even seeing it, it's such a beautiful sentiment of, yeah, okay, fair enough. At least you've come clean now. And it's not about being, you know, part of this military complex or whatever. It's just being a crew, as the episode makes clear. So,
yeah. And I mean, without trying to cast Starfleet as the bad guy, you kind of don't want him to make it back to, well, I don't anyway. You kind of don't want him to automatically make it back to Starfleet, because for the simple fact is, if Starfleet accepts them, that inevitably they might be broken up and go to the academy and be stationed on different ships.
I think that's going to be interesting what they explore in the new episodes for the back half of season 1, because obviously, again, spoiler alert, when we introduce the real Janeway chasing them down on a much bigger and more powerful ship, I think that interesting exploration of like, well, if you want to be Starfleet, stop and let them catch you, but necessarily will that be the case? It doesn't seem that way. So is there a degree, as you said, of like, well, we kind of like where we are, but then you have to kind of ask yourself the question, do you deserve to have this ship? In that case, you did steal it, ultimately. So
but I mean, they stole it from the thieves, basically. So, while a morally grey area, it's you're going in a kind of Robin Hood territory. So maybe they'll look at it from that aspect.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure Starfleet would, and I'm less ambiguous about them getting back there because I think I'd like the idea. But again, I like the fact that the crew aren't uniform in that some of them are bitter about like, well, is it what's his name? Is it Jankum? It's like, well, we could have went to Starfleet and it would have been nice, but now we've got no chance because you've told her the truth. And Dahl's like, maybe Starfleet aren't all that and whatever else. And I was like, I love that they're not even necessarily in agreement about that, because it's nice to have something where there's a bit of depth and not just, okay, we'll all fall in line, So, and even the little tussle over like who actually is
just
the
like this podcast, mate. We're a team, even though we disagree most of the time.
We'll always be a crew, even during disagreements. I assure you. So, no, I'm never mad or anything, but it's the same with those guys. I think, in a way, I think that also fits into something that I was seeing in the episode with Vian again, which is like one of the things we loved about Voyager is that sense of family. And sometimes families argue and squabble, and it was one of the things that I didn't like about Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it leads me. I mean, last week we looked at DS9, and while it's one of my favorite shows, I think the fact that it was so cynical, it just really didn't help my viewer trek, especially right now with everything that's going on. So to watch this today, it's been like a breath of fresh air. I mean, it gives you Gene's vision
I watched it on the
beginning to end.
But but I will say, counter to that, I think it also goes against Gene's vision in the negative part, because people act like that's like some unifying monolith of an idea that's like we must follow it. But Gene Roddenberry is the one that kind of output the idea, certainly in Next Generation, that like there's no conflict between members of the crew. We just can't have it. They can have external conflict, but none within them. And it's like, that's not how people work. And you can act like they're going to be so enlightened in the future, and they are. You know what I mean? They're not really vile or evil people, but there'll still be disagreements. And like I said, if you're supposed to be getting this idea that they're a family, they're going to squabble. It's what families do.
Definitely.
So again, I appreciated that Prodigy goes there and kind of doesn't shy away from that, but also admits that we can disagree and we can have these things and still come together in the end, which again seems very strong. Awesome. What was I going to say? So just apropos of nothing, but just a little directorial touch. It may be a little bit too on the nose, but I actually love the fact that when you cut to scenes of the Diviner and Dreadnought, all of the scene is just bathed in dark red light. Like if you didn't know these were the bad guys, we know.
It's not ambiguous about it, is it?
No. But then again, I mean, it is at its heart, it is kind of a kid show. It's on Nickelodeon, and children tuning in about this message about like, well, don't judge people by their cover, don't be bigoted. You kind of need a very shorthand way of saying, but mind, when we say these guys are bad, we mean bad. So it's kind of an unambiguous, like, all right, I get you. The next thing I have noted is just a line that I really loved, because we've mentioned already I like comedians when they voice the characters, so I already love that Jason Mantzoukas as Jankum Pog. But I love when the sort of temporal nebula thing or whatever attacks, and his line is just, Jankum was afraid it's a physical manifestation of how he feels.
Yeah, I've got that written down as my notes. I think that is a fantastic line. The writers in this are really good.
So good, because you would think of these things, and then you just think that's simultaneously giving you a lot of character, progressing the story, and funny. So
it was like, I mean, he gets another line later on. It's not as kind of I don't know if you could call it profound, But later on, when they all come back and he says, well, Jankum Pog distinctly remembers being dead.
Yeah. Were we dead? Jankum distinctly remembers being dead. Yeah, exactly. Like, what does that even mean? But it's funny.
Yeah.
And again, if you've got a comedian, I mean, it may well have even been ad-libbed, who knows? But yeah, just cool. No, as I was saying, the idea that, they kind of get away with the technobabble stuff, but the idea that the anomaly damages the proto-drive, which we've kind of just learned about, and, it'll effectively blow up the ship, which is a very cause and effect Next Generation or many other time travel episodes idea of like, oh dear, it's already blown up. What do we do? And then a little bit of the Voyager episode Shattered when it's like hologram Janeway going to these different times.
I thought where the hologram Janeway when she split, I thought that was quite a good effect.
It really is. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, 100%. And then it's good because I think they explain, again, as you said, in such a little amount of time, they explain the science idea of it really quickly and effectively, that, okay, the ship's in different time periods. It works like a sine wave, which is an actual scientific thing. You could tell me that. I wouldn't know one way or the other, but I've heard it is. So well done, I guess.
Yeah, I did like the effect also of when it went to the different crew members following that sine wave. It reminded me very much of the little dream sequence in Voyage Home when they initially head back in time.
That was deliberate, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I made the same note, and I think that was deliberately an homage to that when they start doing the heads kind of tilting back in the time tunnel thing. Definitely. Yeah. Janeway kind of explains to the audience, well, because time's moving differently, and she already says it, where Rock is, 10 minutes could seem like an eternity, but it's not enough time elsewhere to repair the ship. So she has to they have to work together, split across these different things, which again is just such brilliantly economical storytelling that I just love it so much. Yeah.
I do like Rock's initial reaction to Janeway telling her what she needs to do as well. And I think most people, when they're feeling a little out of the depth, would act like that.
Especially young girls. I think it really devastated me emotionally because I just felt so much for her. And again, I have to say kudos to Riley Alazraki. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, by the way, who is just quite a young girl as a voice actress and yet gives the performance of a lifetime in this episode. Oh, and again, this is such a little subtle moment, but I do love that Zero basically says as well, I wish I could tell everybody what they mean to me. And I'm like, oh, do it then.
Yeah, pretty cool. The only thing I wasn't keen on it is Dal. I think that this far into the future, surely they're not still playing Snake.
Well, I mean, he did grow up, didn't he? Like for the longest time on like this mining colony as a type prisoner. So, if it's not breaking rocks, it probably seems advanced to him.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But yeah, no, that's funny. And again, I just love it. It's such a cheap gag and such a quick moment, but I love that they have the spare minute to like when she's trying to find out which crew member she's with, and then she comes to Murph and he's just like eating something and vomited up, and that's when you get this cool face palm, like, oh yeah, Murph.
Oh no.
Yeah. Janeway comparing it to Apollo 13 as well. Genius, a little bit of education for the kids in there as well,
Yeah. I seriously, how they managed to fit so much into the pace of, what is it, 25, 22?
I think it's like 22 minutes, yeah.
I just think they really are. I mean, people talk about script writers and writing rooms and, what you can do with a limited amount. And my goodness, the writers on this show, it's just, they're knocking it out of the park. I mean, I'm not sure how you felt, but when it came out and it was it's a kids show, when I put that first episode on, I was very kind of reluctant. I thought I'm not going to like this, but it's blown me away. It's such a good show.
Yeah. It is, and I was the same. I was a victim of that kind of prejudice because I took one look at the designs and was like, oh, it's just turned it into a typical Nickelodeon kid show, and yet it is. As soon as I'd watched these, well, I don't even know how many episodes it took, but certainly after this 10, I've said it before and I will continue to say it, it is my favorite of the current Star Trek shows. It is the most Star Trek one out of all of them. and I just love it so much. I can't wait for the next 10. So.
Yeah, I do looking for, as I say, after the episode that we looked at last time, which I thought I was going to love and didn't. And so when I came to this, I put it on and I really just wasn't in the mood. And I'll be honest with you, for the first few minutes, I was thinking, this is going to be hard work. And I think 10 minutes later, I was just completely hooked, loving it. It does feel like such a breath of fresh air, because don't get me wrong, I love all the current shows, but Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, even to some extent Strange New Worlds, they all have this air of kind of cynicism about them to some extent.
I wouldn't say that's true of Lower Decks, but I do think, as much as I do like Discovery, it was very much a victim of that, certainly when it started. I think it's getting better. But yeah, and Picard has just never, for me, improved the idea of just like Starfleet are scum and we must rail against them. And it's just like, I don't like missing the point, but hopefully the third season rectifies that,
Yeah.
So.
And you genuinely watch this show and come away with a feeling of optimism. And I'm really hoping that they kind of stick with that going forwards, no matter how bad things get, because I think that's this show's greatest selling point. And obviously, they're not going to make it dour and po-face for the kids. But I think if they keep that essential, never let it get taken over by, this kind of maudlin thing that seems to have kind of interspersed. And I mean, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just what I'm picking up on recently. But I just love that there doesn't seem to be any of that. Everything you do get from these characters and essentially yourself, a sense of awe. And I'm not sure if it's because of the way things look in animation. It's so vibrant and colourful. And, just from that opening credit sequence, it's beautiful. And everything looks so just good enough to eat, if you know what I mean. And then you couple it with that Giacchino intro music. And I mean, I love, there's not one Star Trek theme that I don't love. And, hand on heart, I do adore Enterprise before anybody says, but what about Enterprise? I love it. But this, every time it gets my blood pumping. I love it. Love this theme music.
That intro sequence is just a thing of beauty. The fact that it's the protostar through space, which would look gorgeous enough, but then it uses like silhouettes of the characters that it's flying through and everything. And it's just like, it's so ingenious and it looks so good. And again, I feel so bad for thinking the animation style of the characters was a bit like, it's gone very Nickelodeon, because in motion and in context, they are gorgeous. They work really well.
And I mean, towards the end of that sequence, I mean, I've tried to get it as my my avatar, but where the protostar starts cutting that wave, it's just, it's a thing of beauty.
Sometimes I think it is as basic as just like keeping design lineage and keeping to Star Trek familiar designs, and even, like you said, little things like the fact that hologram Janeway is in the Voyager uniform. They could have made it the First Contact era darker one, or one of the Prodigy ones they eventually end up using, but I think that brightness kind of does help. And I feel bad if it means we're not going to have it going forward. We have the new one, fair enough. It certainly won't be a deal breaker for the rest of the show, but I think that bit of color really does help you. So.
It does. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do respect the latter the DS9 uniforms with the grey shoulder pads, but I much prefer the next gen Voyager uniform type things. I like that there's a bit of colour, and when they started dulling it down in place of military greys, and it lost it a bit with for me. I think that's might be why I like the Cerritos uniform so much.
Yeah, well, similar. But I do also, as I said, this is just going to keep on seeming like a praise fest. But I love, again, the economical storytelling of, is it Zero that basically cobbles together the warp matrix, but then finds out they've got the wrong coupler, and they just kind of they're kind of destitute and like, we really messed up. And Janeway's like, no, you didn't. You added a piece to the puzzle, which again is just perfect use of a character who's not defeatist and who's, again, it would be entirely her nature to be like, nope, you didn't mess up. You've done good. We've got another piece of the puzzle and we'll keep going. We'll soldier on, because I think I just think it's a great episode. Yeah. And I will say, when the next part, when Dreadnought 2, as we'll call him, has basically been replicated and attacks Gwyn on the bridge. And you get a reference to, they remember that Gwyn should recognize him from the audio log, sort of the visual log, thing of it was him that attacked Captain Chakotay and stuff. And I love that they remembered that. But yeah. Oh, and again, but having said that, you were saying like, oh, part of the kind of strength is the optimism and all that. But at the same time, it gets away with sometimes being quite dark because it's not all it is. So I was genuinely kind of hurt for Gwyn when Dreadnought says, you have to learn something about your father. You are his greatest failure. And I was like, oh, imagine hearing that. That would be devastating. You know, you found your family and then you find your real family are just like, yeah.
I do like the way that he was disposed of, though, going all aliens about it.
Yeah, but I also love that again in terms of the storytelling. She accidentally basically blows out the Matrix along with him, the warp Matrix, and it's kind of like, oh no! And by this point, you're so invested that you're like, no, what have you done? Yeah. But again, the next part's just really the end of the episode parts, but I'm just going to end up probably coming close to tears because, again, it breaks my heart that you cut back to Rock alone and she kind of says goodnight to everybody that's not really there and she has a little cuddly version of Murph, reminisces and kind of just, you know, as I said, by this point we know by the line, 10 minutes could feel like an eternity. We know that she could have been there. Who knows how long? And then you cut to the fact that Gwyn has had to leave the log to ask for her help. And I've got the whole thing written down because it is next level quality writing and performing by Ella Purnell as well as Gwyn. Let's see if I can find it. So yeah, it's just, hey Rock, how are you? I don't have much time, so I'll get right to it. I'm sorry we all pushed you to be security officer. I've been told what to do and who to be my whole life too. I know you're young, you're capable of so much. I want you to be the best at whatever you want, but to have that chance, I need for you to pay close attention. I attached files with schematics to build a warp matrix and where to find the right dilithium coupler. I tried to do it, but things got complicated. So it's up to you. I know you can do it. The crew believes in you. Oh, that's so good.
And I do like the fact that, she took that and then just, no matter how long it took, she turned it into just learning whatever she needed to. You love it.
100%. As soon as she as soon as kind of Rock comes to action and starts doing things, they play the kind of Star Trek theme motif in the music, and I was like, oh, you didn't even need it, but you know how to get me there. And then again, it's such a little thing, but I do love that she brings back hologram Janeway and says it's took her 276 tries, which again reinforces just how long she's probably been at this. But I again find it really devastating, and I don't even think I'm supposed to. When Janeway's like, "Well, look at you! Look how well you've done! You've created this entire thing. You've got the right coupler. What did you need me for?" And I just feel devastated when she replies, "Well, nobody told me where it goes." Yeah, and I'm just like, "Oh, what? Yeah, of course." Just that last minute.
And then later on, when she says, "How long was she alone?" and she says, "Too long."
Too long. Oh, that gets me every time. That and the fact that like there's an earlier point where she says, "I wish I could hug everyone," and then when they do kind of reconnect the ship or whatever else, they all start hugging her. And hologram Janeway, who obviously can't, just looks on and goes, "There's that hug you wanted." Oh, floods of tears, just like no. And I won't say the line that I love because it's my favorite line of the episode, but it's a brilliant kind of last line from Janeway as well. So. And again, like you said, the idea of how long was she alone, too long, and the fact that she's come into her own, but you're still left feeling devastated for this character. And, you could have ended it there, but it's kind of cool that they even end in the Terminator thing with the wrecked up head of Dreadnought, like the red light just coming back on. Like, there's still danger, I was like, I shouldn't really like that, but I do because it's so cool, So, yeah. Awesome. So any other thoughts before I get to the favorite character moment in life?
No, mate, that's we've pretty much covered everything I wanted to say.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool.
Spark analysis.
So who was your favorite character in this episode then?
You see, I know it should be Rock, but I'm not gonna say Rock because I know, at least I think I know that it's gonna be your favorite character. And I'm gonna have to give it to Jankum. I mean, as far as I'm aware, my memory notwithstanding, it's the first episode we've looked at Prodigy. Mm-hmm. And I've got to say, obviously, like I said, when the show began, as a character, I thought I'd hate him. But now I would vote for Jankum every single time. Never thought I'd love a Tellurite character so much, but hands down,
Jankum's
he
thrilled
is
you picked him.
he's my favourite.
Even that, I mean, the whole talking in the third person thing should be terrible, but because it's a good performer doing it, and because it's in a show that kind of leans into that, I love it. I find it charming. Like I said, you find yourself going around going, "Oh, Jankum does this, Jankum does that." Like, yeah, it's good. It just works.
When he first started, I thought I am going to hate this MFer, and then I think by episode 2, I was thinking, I love this guy.
See, I was already sold. I read the casting and I've seen both The Good Place and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I was like, character played by Jason Mantzoukas, I'm going to love them. And I was right.
I remember him from... I've never watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I couldn't take to it, but I love him in The Good Place.
You know me as well as you think you do, because my favourite character is exactly Rock-Tak. Because it's her moment, isn't it?
It is, but I thought that would be too obvious, and I have to, as I say, it's the first episode of Prodigy we looked at, so I've got to get my Jankum love in there.
Jankum's grateful. Anyway, so, what was your favourite moment of the episode?
Well, switching gears, this one is Rock. That scene where she's in the dorm saying goodnight to everyone. That's when it really just hits you and you really start to feel for her.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't really come up with anything better. So even though it's very basic, I just said the fact of the victorious conclusion was my favorite moment.
Fair enough.
Nice. So there we go. And yeah, what was your favorite line of the episode?
I think you've already covered it actually, but it's the one between Janeway and Dal. You added a piece to the puzzle. It may not be finished, but you're all in this together. And Dal says, "What happens next?" And Janeway says, "We trust each other."
I thought that was Zero, but okay, if you're telling me
was
it's
it?
Dal. I think it was, because I could very much be wrong, but yeah, again, it's now at time of recording 2 days since I watched it. But either way, it's a great line and a great moment. So yeah, fully agree with you. My favorite line. This isn't my favorite line, but yeah. Oh well, fair enough. This isn't my favorite line, but I forgot to mention I actually love the fact that of Janeway saying to Rock-Tak, "Look at you, Cage. You haven't aged, but you've certainly matured." Which is so good.
Yeah.
But my actual favorite line, which I didn't mention earlier, is definitely "You may not think you're a crew, but you sure look like one." Oh, come on. Just perfect Trekkiness. And the fact that it's Janeway delivering that line. Oh, chef's kiss. Well, yeah, I did always put out the tweet as per usual to say, what did you think of this episode? I tried. And as I've mentioned in the past, it's always feast or famine with this. So I only have 3 responses to this. I don't know if it's just because people might not have Paramount Plus to have seen the episode, or people just didn't really have strong feelings, or, maybe they're just not very responsive. But we have what we have. So this is the audience interaction section, or as I call it, subspace communications.
Incoming transmission.
And we will start with at M. Louise P, or Spoopy Lou, who simply says, "I love Prodigy." Can't disagree with that. So there we are. Where are we? At Alex J. Harmon says, "I liked how Rock-Tak was able to have enough time to teach herself quantum physics and other stuff," to which I replied, "But how long was she alone?" He then replied, "It's hard to tell, really." And I replied back, "The answer is too long." And finally, at Trek fan Rick, good old Rick Everson, who's always coming through for us, just says, "It is brilliant indeed. I think Prodigy started with a strong 5 episodes that set a lot of it up. The second 5 just went way beyond. Time Amok is incredible. Some beautiful twists on the time loop idea. Every episode is a strong character piece too." Again, can't disagree with any part of that. So there we go. And that, sadly, is all we have from the audience. But again, I mentioned it on Twitter and I'll say it here. If you haven't seen this episode, if you are reluctant to watch Prodigy because you think, oh, Nickelodeon kid stuff, or you maybe don't think you like the new stuff or whatever, give it a go and maybe just start with this episode as well.
Yeah,
because I think this is the strongest of a strong season. So yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, absolutely. So all that remains then is to give our conclusion and our score out of 5 Starfleet Deltas. DK, did you want to go first?
Yeah, go for it. I don't have that much to say this time. A fantastic episode that, in the space of 25 minutes, presents the viewers of the classic Trek style problem. It also deserves praise for both making it open to younger viewers and simultaneously not condescending to them. That it manages to pack an emotional punch on top of this is a testament to the writing staff on this show. As time travel episodes go, it may not be up there with the best of them just yet, but give it time. As personally, I think it ranks alongside many of the live-action classics with ease. And in a decade's time, I guarantee that this will be looked back on fondly as a truly great episode of the franchise, and I've given it 4 out of 5.
Ooh, okay, fair enough. What did you find lacking enough just to not give it that star? Not that I'm complaining, by the way. I'm just curious what you would what you would say was a negative, because we've just praised it endlessly. So.
We have, but on it's going to be a minor bugbear. It's just a personal thing, and considering how much they managed to pack into the episode, it seems like a slightly churlish thing. But honestly, I could have watched another 30 minutes of this easily.
I see.
And it's just when something is so good, just to see it cut short, even if it were a 2-parter, that would have been a nice little thing for me. I could have happily dealt with the consequences and the plot lines of this for another 30 minutes. And so, as I say, it seems a little churlish, but I can't quite give it a perfect score simply because of that.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I'll give my conclusion and score now then. This is proof conclusive that all those who write off New Trek as shallow, against Gene's vision, or similar either haven't watched it all or are just willfully stupid. This is the finest encapsulation of this franchise in a long time. It fits more action, storytelling, character, growth, and heart into 25 minutes than should be possible, and does it better than many shows with 3 times the runtime. It's an acting tour de force, especially from the trifecta of Mulgrew, Purnell, and Al-Azraqi. It continues the intriguing ongoing plot lines while still being a time that's dedicated to seeing our ragtag band finally become a crew. It looks gorgeous, moves briskly, but never feels like it misses anything. Was thoroughly entertaining, and it made me quite emotional. I think it's top tier Star Trek, and I actually gave it 5 out of 5.
Ooh.
Which, I think the audience are probably thinking, yeah, you give everything 5 at this point. But yeah.
You see, I judge mine on a scale, and I think the only thing that I've ever given a 5 is Wrath of Khan.
You did give a 5 to Tony Paper Moon, I think. So.
Well, yeah, but that's got Vic Fontaine in it. That's extraneous circumstance.
Did you also give a 5 to The Visitor as well?
I don't think I did. I'll have to look back on that, but I don't think I did.
Fair enough. But yeah, so obviously there's just 2 of us, so it should be easy to work out the average between 4 and 5. Just do these complex maths, and turns out that makes the final score for the podcast 4.5 or 4.5 out of 5. So definitely not bad at all for Prodigy, a series that again is only 10 episodes old and is pumping out a 4.5 out of 5 episode. Got to be good. So awesome.
Definitely.
Right. DK, we're done. We've done it. We made it.
Yes. As always, a pleasure. It's great to parry with you, even when I can't remember half of the stuff that we're parrying about. And again, for anybody listening, if you feel like joining in and thinking, well, that just sounds like 2 guys sat around in a bar getting drunk and arguing, that's precisely what it is. So if you want to join in, please let us know, and you're more than welcome. We're looking for people to talk Trek, and if that is you, then by all means get in touch.
Absolutely. And if you have any thoughts about this episode and you want to post on our social medias, all the links are always in the outro and in the descriptions. Let's get talking about Star Trek. There's too much negativity and too much ignorance and stuff. Let's talk about things we like. Let's talk about things we dislike. If we're able to do it like myself and DK just showed, we were able to stay civil, have a disagreement, and we're still friends. So it can happen. So,
I mean, I am going to let his tires down after this, but other than that, yeah, it's...
Oh, well. So, as I said, we will be back for more shenanigans of this type next week. I believe, DK, you are going to be doing that one without me, potentially.
Well, potentially. Yes, next week we will be looking at the classic Deep Space Nine Trials and Tribulations.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait. Whether I'm on that one or not, I can't wait to hear it back. So that should be thoroughly entertaining. So yeah, stick around for the remainder of this time travel season. We do have another 3 episodes left, and we will conclude with a movie as usual. So, I think you can probably guess what it is. Time travel based, and we've already done First Contact. So I'll just say that. So yeah, all I'll have to say now is thanks again, DK. Do join us. Apologies if you've had to sit through a long, arduous bit of Trek arguing to get here, but do remember, at the end of the day, we are a crew. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
You have been listening to the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast, hosted by Michael Wilson and DK. Created, produced, and edited by Michael Wilson. Additional material produced by DK. Music by Timeless Journey. More information can be found at soundcloud.com/Timeless Journey. The Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast is based on an idea by Michael Wilson and Will Templar. Follow the podcast on Twitter at HoMTrek, on Instagram at HoM Star Trek Podcast, or look for the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast under Facebook groups. Links to all our social media accounts and more are in this episode's description. This podcast is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Just look for Silver Screen Hit or Miss Star Trek. This has been a Mike's Podcast production, copyright 2022. Thank you for listening.